Hello and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Here's a look at some of today's top stories. If you're thinking about getting a commercial driver's license, now might be the right time. The White House is trying to boost more trucking jobs amid the supply chain bottleneck. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is a step closer to a lifelong appointment to the nation's highest court. Senators on Capitol Hill today held votes to move forward with her confirmation. We have the details. Over the weekend, we had a chance to catch up with Eric Trump. He shares with us about how the former president kept dictators around the world from overstepping their reach. He also shares about what he feels is a double standard from the mainstream media and how the Trumps and the Bidens are held to account. American businesses are struggling with supply chain bottlenecks. To address it, the White House is trying to boost more trucking jobs. The Biden administration rolled out the Trucking Action Plan last December, aiming to make trucking jobs more accessible.
So far in 2022, we're issuing CDLs at double the rate of last year, 120,000 in January and February alone.
Trucks move over 70% of goods in the United States. The industry needs at least 80,000 new truckers. The White House's plan includes to streamline the process of getting commercial driver's licenses and to increase apprenticeship programs. It also encourages veterans, women, and minorities to start trucking careers.
In the last 90 days, 100 major employers have launched new registered apprenticeship programs. UPS, Domino's, Pepsi's, Albertsons, and more.
However, beginning from this month, Southern California's two ports are starting to charge trucks fossil fuel fees. On Capitol Hill today, lawmakers took a leap forward on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation to the Supreme Court. The Senate faced unexpected delays just ahead of the key vote. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the details.
Top Democrat senators today moving quickly to seat President Biden's Supreme Court nominee. The Senate Judiciary Committee voting to move Judge Jackson's confirmation to the floor.
She has impeccable qualifications. We don't agree on much in the Senate, but not one senator on this committee has questioned that she is well qualified.
But the chairman had to delay the vote after a flight delay. Senator Padilla, one of the 11 Democrats on the 22-member panel, was missing when the vote was originally planned, slowing Democrats' fast-track plan at least for a little while. The flight carrying Senator Padilla to Washington was sent back to Los Angeles because a passenger on his plane had a medical emergency. If the senators moved to vote without Padilla, it would have given Republicans the upper hand, a one-vote advantage over Democrats in the evenly split committee.
Someone of her impressive caliber surely has a judicial philosophy, but maybe she just didn't want to talk about it. I will vote no.
After reconvening, all Republicans in the committee voted no, forcing Senate Leader Chuck Schumer to call a vote to advance the nomination anyway.
Despite Republican opposition, Judge Jackson has enough votes to get confirmed to the Supreme Court on a bipartisan basis.
Melina, what's the timetable looking like for her final confirmation, and how's the support across the aisle looking?
Well, Steve, we do know there is one Republican that has confirmed she will vote yes, and that's Senator Susan Collins from Maine. But there's two other centrist Republicans that have yet to confirm whether they'll vote yes or no. That's Senator Romney and Senator Murkowski. But just with Collins confirming that she will vote yes, that already makes the process easier for Democrats. They will then have the bare minimum of 51 votes to get it across the finish line. And in that case, they won't have to use Vice President Kamala Harris to come in and break that tie. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer says he's planning to get this final confirmation vote done and through the Senate by the end of this week. Steve, back to you.
Thanks for that, Melina. James Comer, top Republican on the House Oversight Committee, urged Chairwoman Maloney to call Hunter Biden to testify as an expert on cobalt mining. He referred to an upcoming hearing on electrifying all vehicles of the post office. In a Fox News interview, Congressman Comer said Hunter Biden has made more money than anyone off rare earth minerals, taking a jab at the deal the young Biden was involved in with a Chinese company who has strong ties to the CCP.
He's made more money than anyone I know profiting from rare earth minerals. In fact, he negotiated a deal to sell a cobalt mine from an American company to a Chinese company. This gives China a further competitive advantage.
Last week, Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson presented bank records on the Senate floor detailing payments from a Chinese company to Hunter Biden. Recent reports about Hunter Biden's foreign business deals, among other controversies, have given the GOP opportunities to take jabs at the president's son, just 7 months before the midterm elections. Over the weekend, we caught up with Eric Trump, son of the former president and executive vice president of the Trump Organization, while at the Reawaken America tour in Salem, Oregon. Eric touched upon why his father was able to maintain stability around the world during his time as president, all the while enduring constant fire from the press and his political adversaries back home. Here's what he had to say.
Eric Trump, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
It's good to be with you guys.
Eric, I want to ask you, why do you think that your father was able to maintain order during his time as president with all of these dictators around the world?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's called strength. People respected him. They respected the United States of America. They respected our military. They knew he was unconventional. They knew he was a little bit unpredictable. And he wanted them to know that. You know, when he started taking out guys like Soleimani, right? The Reaper drones and, all of a sudden bad guys start disappearing around the world. I think that sent a very big signal to a lot of people, which is don't mess with the United States of America, don't mess with their military, don't mess with, with Trump. He's willing to do this. Same thing with ISIS. I mean, they had a big terrorist camp on the top of a massive mountain. You'll remember this very well. He flies over, drops a Moab bomb on, and guess what? Those terrorists don't exist anymore. People knew that, don't mess with him. He'll use the strength of the United States. At the same time, he was a guy who didn't want to go to war. And so it really was kind of that peace through strength doctrine that we always talk about.
Now, Eric, I want to ask you, recently you probably have noticed that we're tapping into America's emergency oil reserves with an emphasis on emergency. What is your take on that?
Well, my take on is the strategic petroleum reserves, which is what it's called. I mean, they're really meant for a catastrophe, a world war where you need it. You need it for ships, you need it for your military, you need it for a lot of other things. They were, drastically depleted when my father was in office. Oil was at the cheapest prices in the history of the country, and so he took that opportunity to refill the strategic reserves. Now they just want to give stimulus out, so they want to drain those reserves only because they're not doing the Keystone XL pipeline. They're not drilling on federal lands. They've made it more difficult to actually extract oil and gas and all the other things that we know right now. So you're dipping into your strategic, reserves that are meant for kind of unthinkable times. That's why they were built, to try and cheapen oil and gas prices because of failed policies that this administration has put in. That's not the point of them. And by the way, it hardly makes a dent in the actual amount of oil that this country uses on a daily basis. And so it's disappointing. It shouldn't have happened. He should have kept building the pipeline. Keystone XL pipeline should have been built. And all his disastrous policies shouldn't be put in place, and you wouldn't have needed to actually tap into them. And I wish that's where we would have been.
So we've recently seen Hillary Clinton in her campaign. It's come to light that she spied on your father when he was in the White House. And does this raise deeper concerns about the deep state and potentially what she may have created as her time as Secretary of State?
I was the guy that got emails from the Washington Post and the New York Times when somebody planted out that the FBI was investigating Trump because they had a secret server with Trump Tower, between Trump Tower and Russia, which never existed. I mean, her people who were paid on her payroll went into the FBI, lied to the FBI, then went and planted that to the mainstream media in this country, which started the whole Russia collusion nonsense, which wasted literally 3 years of everybody's time. The media's time was a huge distraction for this country.
Eric, you mentioned the media. How damaged do you think the media is right now?
Yeah. Well, based on their approval ratings, really damaged because they've got a 7% approval rating in this country. It's horrible. It's people don't trust them anymore. If I did 1/100th of what Hunter Biden did, I'd be in jail for the rest of my life. Yet the mainstream media hasn't mentioned Hunter Biden's name in 258 days. There's a serious problem with that, right? I mean, they let him skirt by. They carry Joe Biden's water. Remember, you don't think they would have been trying to institute, Article 25 of the Constitution had my father said 1/100th of the stupid things, frankly, that Biden said? Of course they would have. But again, they're on that side, and they'll do anything to cover up for him and let him get away with just about anything under the sun. You don't have equal scales of justice in this country. You don't have equal media coverage. The media is owned I mean, they are the propaganda wing of the left-wing party, and I think that's become very clear to all Americans.
Eric Trump, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Former President Trump is endorsing Alaska's Sarah Palin for Congress. The House seat in Alaska was left open when the late Congressman Don Young passed away last month. Palin was the former governor of Alaska, and in 2008, she ran for vice president with John McCain. In a statement, Trump says that Palin's campaign will put America first. Alaska's special primary to fill the House seat will take place on June 11th. The general election will follow on August 16th. President Biden is calling for a war crimes trial against Russian President Vladimir Putin. Biden also says he would place more sanctions on Russia after reported atrocities in Ukraine.
Well, the truth of the matter is so what happened in Bucha. This warrants him. He is a war criminal. I'm seeking more sanctions, yes. I'll have time to announce that to you.
Biden's comments came after Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky visited Bucha, a town near Kyiv. Ukrainian officials say they found bodies of civilians in the town.
Now, as the images from Bucha so powerfully reinforce, now is not the time for complacency. The Ukrainians are defending their homeland courageously, and the United States will continue to back them with military assistance, humanitarian aid, and economic support.
Meanwhile, the U.S. will push to remove Russia from the UN Human Rights Council.
In close coordination with Ukraine, European countries, and other partners at the UN, we're going to seek Russia's suspension from the UN Human Rights Council.
Putin signed a decree today to place visa restrictions on countries that have taken, quote, unfriendly actions against the Kremlin in recent weeks. Last month, the Russian government approved a list of unfriendly countries, including the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. The month of March showed good jobs growth, but many are still saying there's cause for concern when it comes to the economy. Could a recession be on the horizon? Member of the House Financial Services Committee, Warren Davidson, is here with us to discuss. 3 Republican states are suing the Biden administration over its plans to lift Title 42. They say it will have a devastating effect on these states. Lawmakers prepare to spend another $10 billion to go toward fighting COVID-19. We'll tell you what this new COVID package will pay for. Hello and welcome back to NTD's Capital Report. I'm Steve Lance. Some new numbers are in, and although they look good on paper, experts are saying that the U.S. economy is still facing a lot of challenges. Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson sits on the House Financial Services Committee, and we're happy to have him on to discuss. Congressman Warren Davidson, thank you for joining us again.
Always an honor. Thanks for having me on.
Congressman, there's so many numbers being thrown around between 40-year high inflation at a rate of 8%. You have gas prices at record highs. It's really hard to keep track of it all. Just from a high-level overview, where are we and how do you think we could reverse the current trajectory of all things economy?
Well, you know, the standard saying is the cure for high prices is high prices because it decreases demand. Unfortunately, we're seeing, frankly, even the president acknowledge that we're going to have food shortages. So that's not a good sign. And frankly, when you see inflation reported in efforts to say, well, you know, the inflation is this number, excluding, and it really doesn't matter what they exclude, but they exclude the things that state it higher, like energy, healthcare, and food, things that aren't really optional for families.
Now, Congressman Davidson, the recent jobs report appeared to be strong, yet experts say this is not helping the overall situation. Why might that be?
Well, the jobs report was strong. There was growth, but there are a couple issues. One is we still don't have the same level of labor force participation we had prior to COVID. So there are still millions of people on the sidelines that haven't yet re-entered the workplace or replaced those who retired and won't be re-entering the workplace. And then I think the other thing is you still see scarcity out there. And so you're almost, in a way, it emboldens the Fed to go with a little bigger rate hike. Maybe they'll do 50 basis points instead of 25. But you know, the reality is that most everyone is telling them, A, what you're doing is going to produce inflation. They said, no, it's going to be transitory. It obviously wasn't transitory. We said, hey, you should start pulling out your supports for the market, you know, buying of mortgage-backed securities, buying of treasuries at a clip of $120 billion a month. It took them a really long time to even begin tapering it. They started talking about tapering it. And so now we're concerned that they're going to apply the brakes. You know, there's almost no way for them to be able to do it perfectly, I guess. And so there is a lot of fear in the marketplace that we will see north of 10% inflation without the exclusions this year, and that could easily produce a recession.
You just sort of touched upon it. I feel like I ask you this each time we speak, but now that it's happened once, I want to get your thoughts on the raising of the interest rate with another hike very likely coming soon. Is this a good or practical way to curb inflation?
Well, it of course is, because you want there to be equilibrium between supply and demand for the debt that we're issuing. I mean, there is no monetary discipline right now. So people can say that modern monetary theory is dead, except that's still basically what's being practiced. There is, the Fed has been consistently adding treasuries to its own balance sheet, and the market doesn't produce enough demand for those. And frankly, when you look, the yield curve has inverted. And so why is that inverted? It's because the Fed is artificially distorting the rates, I think. And, you know, the market doesn't set the rates as well as, isn't allowed to set the rates. The market would set the rates better than the Fed. The Fed is basically centrally controlling the price of money, and the yield curve's telling you, and historically that's been a fairly reliable, not a guarantee that there will be a recession. So people are rightly alarmed.
That was my next question for you, Congressman. The key indicator there, one of them being the yield curve flagging a potential recession on the horizon. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I hope they're wrong. I mean, there are a lot of things in the economy that could produce strength, but you know, I think there is a lot of concern that the administration and especially, you know, Treasury, the SEC, they're doing everything to stifle investment in the United States. They're frankly, you know, scaring off capital that could go to work in our own economy, and you know, fear, uncertainty, and doubt tends to pull back on investment, and when that happens, you know, it's hard to keep the momentum in the economy going. You know, consumers eventually can't exclude things that the economists can say, oh, well, we're going to exclude food, energy, and healthcare and education. So their option is to consume less. And fundamentally, the one silver lining in the economy when rates go up is normally it rewards savers. And that's a great way to cool the economy down in a way that pulls money out of the economy, pulls money out of the equities, prevents asset bubbles. People can just save money, but there is no yield in savings. Frankly, bank savers or anybody else that has access to retail savings have been annihilated. And even crypto lending, the SEC kind of killed that with some of their regulatory actions. So the only thing really left are you know, regulatory actions to kind of cool the economy down. And I think that's going to be less well done with a central planner than letting the market function.
Congressman Warren Davidson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The State Department's Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy, or CDP, went into operation today. A statement by the department says that the CDP is part of Secretary Blinken's modernization agenda. The new bureau will address national security challenges, economic opportunities, and digital policy. Jennifer Backus, a career member of the Senior Foreign Service, currently leads the CDP. The Senate will later confirm an ambassador at large to replace her. According to the CDP website, the Bureau's mission will be to use diplomacy to encourage responsible state behavior in cyberspace, protect the integrity and security of the Internet's infrastructure, and uphold democratic values. Another $10 billion is going to go toward fighting COVID-19. Lawmakers reportedly reached the deal today to spend this money to pay for rapid tests, producing vaccines, and more. Top Republican negotiators for the COVID package spent a few weeks working out a deal with the Democrats. The $15 billion first proposed was turned down by Republicans because they insisted it be fully paid for. This $10 billion is expected to be funded by repurposing money from previous stimulus packages. It's still half the amount that the White House first asked for. The COVID response team has warned Congress for weeks that they were running out of money to fight the pandemic. This new package would fund more therapeutics, tests, vaccines, and other supplies, but it may not include money to help other countries fight the pandemic. The senators who made the deal stripped out the $5 billion in global aid, but some on the House side have warned they won't pass it without global aid included. Multiple states are suing the Biden administration over its plans to lift Title 42. Arizona, Louisiana, and Missouri say that rescinding the ability to expeditiously remove illegal immigrants will have a devastating effect on the country. Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich tweeted saying that the states are requesting that the Title 42 be kept as an official federal policy and that it be vigorously enforced. According to the Department of Homeland Security, an estimated 18,000 illegal immigrants are expected to flow in every single day. That could lead to as many as 540,000 attempted border crossings per month. The three states are saying that removing Title 42 will create an unprecedented surge at the border and will overwhelm law enforcement. That's all we have for you this evening on the Capitol Report. Thank you for tuning in. From Washington, D.C., I'm Steve Lance, and we'll see you tomorrow.